welcome back to the Junius Maltby channel for another story time. Treasure hunting, treasure finding. Stories like this always intrigue me. They're fun to talk about, fun to share. And this one involves Mexican gold, 50 peso gold coins. So I'm sure Sal will enjoy it because I know he likes this particular coin. Missing gold on a Hong Kong hillside. History buffs return to plane crash site in search of truth and treasure. This article came out about a year or two ago, and I never covered it. However, I was reading about it today as it was just some information I came upon, and I felt like doing a story on it because it's very interesting, and I love treasure hunting. So I love it so much that if I could, I would probably leave right now at this very moment. Stop, well, I guess when the video is done. I would fly there and try to find more gold on this mountainside, and you're going to see why in a moment. A cargo plane carrying Mexican bullion and gold worth millions today was downed on Mount Parker in 1947. 70 years after a Philippine Airlines plane burst into flames on impact with Mount Parker, 3 local history buffs have unearthed a gold coin from the crash site, and with it, a forgotten mystery. The upper slopes are shrouded in dense mist and low cloud on a chilly, overcast Saturday, much as they were on that afternoon 7 decades ago as 3 men make the arduous trek up the steep Mount Parker Trail towards the summit, metal detectors slung over their shoulders. There was no concrete trail in 1947, and newspapers at the time reported that the police search and recovery team dispatched from Shao K1 the following morning had to cling to shrubs and tufts of grass in order to reach the smoldering crash site, where the charred remains of the 4 crew members were discovered. The aircraft, a Dakota bearing the registration PIC-12, had crashed on Saturday, January 25th, en route to Kai Tak Airfield, carrying a reported U.S. $15 million in cargo of Mexican bullion and coins destined for 7 Hong Kong banks. A significant amount of that cargo remains unaccounted for. Quote, "No one else comes up here, and hardly anyone else knows the story of the Philippine Airlines Dakota and the gold," says Craig Mitchell, who confesses that if it were not for the 70th anniversary and the unexpected interest from Post magazine, he and his 2 colleagues, teacher Alex Somerville and photographer Stuart Woods, would not have made the trip. In 1947, though, the accident was headline news, provoking an official inquiry. The authorities, fearing a mini gold rush, quickly established an impenetrable police cordon while the precious cargo was recovered. The incident also generated a series of rumors, myths, and conspiracy theories about the final destination of the cargo and the fate of the gold. Mitchell located the crash site by assiduously correlating the crash reports with aerial photography and press cuttings from the time and comparing them with contemporary maps. He says he has visited the site with colleagues between 6 and 8 times with metal detectors, but has found only small fragments of wreckage and a broken cabin clock. The dead pilot was named as Captain Theodore Weymouth from Kansas City in the United States, a 28-year-old ex-United States Army flyer who had landed at the treacherous Kai Tak airfield several times before. He was accompanied by co-pilot Narzal Lim, radio operator Benedicto Mirza, and flight attendant Lourdes Chidon. Weymouth's wristwatch was located by police at the scene and had stopped at 3:02 p.m., just a few seconds after his last communication with Kai Tak. The impact explosion was so intense that gold coins had melted and become fused to the airframe, while the force of the blast projected others across the slopes in a shower of Mexican gold pieces. Quote, "It is believed that some of the heavy gold bars thrown high into the air by the explosion may still lie deeply embedded in the soft soil of the hillside," reported the China Mail 2 days after the crash. The Douglas C-47 Dakota was an Allied military transport aircraft used extensively after the Second World War by civilian airlines. Quote, aircraft crashes were a lot more common then, particularly with the Dakotas, unquote, says Woods. A short distance from the 532-meter summit, Mitchell checks his position and leads the small group off the trail and down a steep, boulder-strewn slope, slipping and stumbling through thick vegetation. By some granite boulders, he points through the eerie gloom to the spot where the 4 crew members lost their lives, but there is no obvious indication a crash happened here. Metal detectors whir and buzz as the 3 men sweep the slopes. The damp conditions are far from ideal because they reduce the effectiveness of the detectors, explains Woods. The cloud clings to the trees and bamboo, and cold, condensed water drips from above, but a police photograph taken at the site in 1947 shows that then there was just low scrub here. Once they had arrived, the police team were quickly reinforced by laborers who formed a line down the slippery slope to waiting trucks, each man carrying a heavy gold bar over their shoulder. The security and salvage operation was supervised by Assistant Superintendent E.C. Loscombe, who brandished a loaded revolver just in case anyone would make a run for it with the newfound treasure. Mitchell has uncovered a theory that the gold was Chinese and was being returned by American authorities to the nationalist government, which had left it in their safekeeping during the Japanese occupation. Frisked by police officers, several coolies were found to have hidden 50 peso pieces in their waistbands or rolled up trouser legs, reported the China Mail. But it was not just the local labor force who succumbed to the allure of Mexican gold. Despite the discovery of at least one light-fingered European policeman, hushed up at the time, it was rumored 4 years afterwards that several officers retired in lavish style on what had been retrieved from PI C-12. There is some suspicion that certain members of the Shaiquan police station have appropriated and disposed of at least one of the gold bars. One Chinese constable failed to report for duty on the 5th of February and is now missing, states one report in the then confidential police file on the crash. There is a handwritten comment made underneath that report, which reads, "There would be some grounds for saying that if only one gold bar is missing, the entire police force deserves congratulations," unquote. The scribbled note is initialed M, which could be that of Sir Mark Young, then governor of Hong Kong. Quote, "The way things were back then, I would not be surprised if any and all of the disciplined services who attended the crash did not help themselves," unquote, says a retired Hong Kong police officer with an interest in the history of the force. A police report dated January 30th, 1947, states that the Right Reverend Bishop N.V. Hallward had been asked to enlist 20 Boy Scouts to carry out a search of the hillside. That search turned up 2 gold bars and 90 pounds of gold coins. Quote, "I now hold bank receipts for a total weight of 3,573 pounds of gold recovered, plus 50 gold coins and 2 half coins. As stated in my previous report, the total gross weight of the gold consignment was 4,491 pounds. A senior superintendent of police, surnamed Major, states in the report. The admission that 918 pounds, or more than 20% of the total cargo, was unaccounted for is largely ignored. Later, in 1947, the price of gold reached about $50 per ounce. So that missing metal represented treasure worth $734,400, about $9 million today. That would also value the total cargo at near $5 million, not the $15 million, which was commonly reported at the time. A report in the South China Morning Post on February 1st appears to contradict Major's account. It states that only 4 of the gold bars remained missing and that 24,252 of the 29,942 coins that comprise the rest of the cargo had been found. That would still imply, though, that 5,690 coins with a current value of more than US $6.8 million, $6.8 million today, were either buried in the peaty soil of the mountain or were stolen and perhaps used later to subsidize a number of cushy retirements. Lascombe, for one, did not retire on the proceeds of the gold. He was shot dead by bandits near Tsuen Wan on September 1st, 1950, and we will never know whether he had been tempted to pick up a coin or two. I saw the scattered remains of the burned-out aircraft. The ground all around was strewn with debris and glittering objects, reported Clive Halls of the Far East Flying Training School, who flew over the summit of Mount Parker at 11 a.m. on January 26, 1947. On the 70th anniversary, however, there is no glitter to be seen. Somerville is the newest member of the local history group and has been out on only half a dozen expeditions. Searching further down the slope from his colleagues, his detector emits an unenthusiastic low-frequency buzz, which he dismisses as a piece of debris. Nevertheless, he agrees to pose for a photograph as he digs down into the soft soil. Instead of debris, though, he finds about 6 centimeters to 7 centimeters beneath the surface a dull, yellow circular object near the roots of a tree. He aims his pinpointer, a small pencil-shaped metal detector, at it, but no metallic signal is generated, and he shrugs his shoulders. On a previous search, some of the group scattered chocolate coins to trick the novice into thinking there was, quote, gold in their hills, unquote, and he does not intend to be fooled again. Then Somerville realizes his device is switched off, and he flicks the switch, and the little detector makes a deafening high-pitched whine every time it passes over the yellow disc. His face drains of color as he calls out for Michael and Woods, who come sliding down to the scene. He brushes away brown earth and reveals the unmistakable markings of a 1946 Mexican 50 peso piece made from 1.2 ounces of pure gold. There is a stunned silence and a brief celebratory photograph before a quick smartphone search reveals the coin is valued at about $1,200. An intense exploration of the vicinity follows, but after 3 hours, nothing else is found except a small, twisted bundle of burned copper wire. It's a great find, but he's located the needle in the haystack. We could come up here every day for 10 years and never find anything else, says Woods, who is interested in the controversy regarding the final destination of the gold. That's just what he's telling people. That guy goes back there probably 5 times a year. I suspect the ongoing crisis on the mainland increased the demand for gold in the Hong Kong market for both locals and those arriving or planning to arrive from the mainland. And this was being met from overseas, says Professor Catherine Shank of the University of Glasgow in Scotland, an economic historian with a special interest in Hong Kong and gold. Gold has always been an important hedge investment in times of uncertainty. She sounds like a smart lady. Schenck says, however, that she cannot find a link between the Mount Parker gold and Chang. One coin accounts for only a fraction of the missing gold, but not all things are quantified in dollars. Somerville has no intention of cashing in on his good fortune. Quote, "There is no way I could ever sell this," he says. "It's part of Hong Kong's history." Well, that was an interesting story, and it's an interesting article that actually covers some of the controversy and theories of where the gold that was recovered ended up, and other stories of what might have happened to some of the gold that was discovered by others. But there's no question about it. There's still gold on that mountain. And as we've read, there could be 5,000 1.2 ounce 50 peso gold coins scattered in the vicinity of that crash site, as well as possibly additional, very heavy and larger gold bars. Now, if that's the case, and I was in Korea, I would be on that mountain with a metal detector. So if any of you live in that vicinity or that region, do old Junius a favor and go there in my stead on my behalf and find some of these gold coins. Well, there's no way for me to get over to this part of the world anytime soon, and I don't actually have a metal detector. So the only hope for me to own one of these 50 peso 1.2 ounce gold coins steeped in history would be to purchase one. Now, I did find them on APMEX. It seems like APMEX has a pretty good supply of these 50 peso 1.2 ounce gold coins. Now, these are not the ones from the crash. These are not the ones that were recovered. However, these are the same type of coin. These are the coins off of the same dies, same mints, most likely the same mines. These are the 50 peso 1.2057 ounce gold coins. It would be nice to get one of these as a token, as a part of this history alone, just to be able to connect a little bit more closely with a story like this. You know, if I had one of these coins, I definitely would have got it out as I was reading this article and handled it and held it and looked upon it as I was wondering where the other 5,000 plus or more coins are that are stuck somewhere up there around on that mountain. Hope you guys enjoyed this brief little journey back in time, this little historical story. You know, it's got everything. It's got adventure, treasure, a plane crash, lots of gold, and mystery surrounding where gold went, who has it all, if people stole it. Just an interesting part of the story indeed. Hope you guys enjoy it, and have a good night, good evening. This is a good little bedtime story, so those of you that are trying to get to sleep, may you dream of nice piles of golden 50 peso coins all about you. So have sweet dreams of 50 peso, heavy, thick, edge lettering gold coins. All right, good night.